Welcome to Rugby Council's Licensing and Safety Committee meeting this Tuesday, the 25th of January. I am Councillor Julia Barrow, Chairman of this committee. The meeting is being web streamed to the public through the Council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, if you wish to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. This will allow the camera pan in your general direction. Before we begin the formal agenda, I am obliged to read out the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please could I ask that you make your way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the Town Hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldicot Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return to the building. Moving on to the agenda, the first item of business is to approve the minutes of the meetings listed on the agenda. Do I have a proposer? And a seconder? Thank you. And a show of hands? Second item is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Brader, Cade and Ellis tonight.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for members. A. Non-pecuniary interests. B. Pecuniary interests. And C. Notice under Section 106 Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Noted, thank you. So we continue with the agenda. Item 4, the review of Hackney carriage fares. And Emma, I believe you're presenting that one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Okay, thank you, Chair. Under Section 65 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, the Council has the power to set the fares for Hackney carriages. Please note, this is not in relation to private hire vehicles whose fares are set by the private hire operators. Hackney carriage fares in Rugby were last increased in March 2018. A copy of the fare chart can be seen at Appendix A of this report. As you can see, there are 3 different tariffs. These tariffs are directly related to the unsociable hours worked by taxi drivers, ensuring the provision of Hackney carriage transport is always available. A 4-week consultation was carried out with the taxi trade back in October. A questionnaire was sent to all licence holders. This questionnaire can be seen at Appendix B. The results of the consultation can be seen at Appendix C. Once the results of the consultation were collated, a proposed fare chart was circulated to the trade. The proposed fare chart can be seen at Appendix F, and comments from the trade at Appendix D from the first consultation. Looking at the results of the consultation 1 in the tables, an increase of at least 15% was most popular amongst the trade, and for this to be an increase for the initial starting rate and the cost by distance. For perspective, the proposed fares for a 2-mile journey would increase by £1.20 on Tariff 1, £1.65 under Tariff 2, and £2.20 under Tariff 3. This is shown in Table 3 in the report. Looking at the National Hackney Carriage Fares table published by the Private Hire and Taxi Monthly, Rugby are currently ranked 233 out of 359 local authorities in the country. This is as of November 2021. For comparison, Coventry are currently ranked 120. Their last fare review was in 2014, and Warwick are ranked 198, with their last review being in 2016. The full comparison can be seen at in Table 4 of the report. Moving on to other considerations, fuel costs have risen since the last fare review. Looking at Table 5, the cost of petrol and diesel has risen since 2017 by 14p per litre. Within this review, it's important to find a balance between income generated by taxi drivers to cover their day-to-day costs and costs associated with licensing processes, as well as considering the needs of residents and visitors to the borough. It's also important to note that the Hackney carriage fares are the maximum drivers are permitted to charge. drivers do have the option to charge less. The recommendation today is for the Council to consider the proposed fare chart and, if in agreement, approve the fares for a consultation period of not less than 14 days, in which period an advert must be published in a local newspaper and a public notice be put on display at council premises. If no objections are received during these 14 days, the suggested date for implementation is the 1st of March 2022. Should relevant objections be received, we will consider those and bring the report back to the committee for consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. From the Chair, can I just ask, on Appendix F, whether it is a typo under Tariff 3 for the subsequent 176 yards or part thereof, or 38.70 seconds. That's a different amount for the seconds waiting time as Tariff 2 and Tariff 1. It would seem to be a typo. If you look at the 176 yards or part thereof for Tariff 1 and Tariff 2, it's 39.24 seconds. But for Tariff 3, it's a lesser time. It just appears to be a typo, and wondered if it was.
Yes, apologies for that. So Tariff 3 should be 39.24 seconds.
Members, do we have any questions for the officer?
Thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Officer, for the introduction, Emma, and the summary. I've just got two questions. The number of questionnaires that were given out, do we know how many were given out in relation to responses that were received? I was trying to dig that through the report. And also there's a couple of comments throughout regarding six-seaters. Is there anything in the, can that be addressed separately, or is there anything in the council's gift to address that issue? Seems to be around the six-seaters increasing the fare there. Is that something that can be looked at?
Regarding six-seaters, you could look at increasing fares if there's more passengers. Our meters are calendar controlled at the moment, so people can't put Tariff 2 on during the day if they see someone who's not familiar with taxis, etc. Compared to the demand, etc., there's a number of six-seater taxis on the rank. The people who come into town pre-book normally from private hire companies, so they get a fixed price to come in, etc. When they go home, they use six-seaters, but the six-seaters have a benefit. If there's six people who want to get a taxi and there's a six-seater at the back of the queue, they'll get that job, so it balances out effectively. So at the moment, I would say we leave it as it is and review it again perhaps in 12 months' time to see where we are. Because they have got advantage. If somebody comes with the 6 people, 5 people, there's nothing at the front of the queue, they'll get a job from the back. So they have that advantage there.
And then,
Regarding the first point.
yeah, in relation to the number of questionnaires that were sent out, I don't have that number in front of me, but it was, I'd say, 25% of all drivers, operators, vehicle proprietors kind of got back to us with the questionnaires.
All Councillor Douglas, all drivers and operators were written out to. They all knew, so the operators could have fed back to drivers that there's a fair review. The Hackney Trade knew, both the trade reps knew, and they were sent out by the team. There were letters sent out, so they did go out and people did know. But normally in these situations you get certain people who choose to respond and most of them won't, and they'll probably say something later on. But again, there'll be another consultation in the paper, so that's there to if anybody wants to comment.
Councillor Garcia.
Thank you. I was just wondering, when have the other local authorities done their last increase?
So Coventry did their last increase in 2014, and then the other date I have in front of me is Warwick District Council being in 2016.
Right, so all of these then are pretty outdated, this table 4, where you've given us other local authorities. So presumably then theirs will all be going up. It's sort of in line with the tariff one that we've put. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Garcia, we have a forum where we liaise with other neighbouring authorities, and they are aware that we're looking at fares. So normally one authority follows others and looks at who's doing what. So we're the one that we've taken the lead on it and we've looked at it.
Well, that's nice to know, isn't it? Lead by example. On that note, I did notice that it's only £100 on there to clean the car up. And actually, I think that's fairly low. Because actually, who wants to be cleaning vomit up out the back seat of your car? And I don't know whether you can raise that slightly. Even if it was 150, it might sort of prevent people, or make people think twice before doing things like that.
Some councils charge less. £100 is a fair price. The trade are happy with it. If you go for a full valet to Asda's or somebody's been sick, etc., you're normally looking at £60 to £80. £100 is normally with a pot.
But then, of course, they're losing time, aren't they, while they're sitting there waiting for the car to be cleared out or cleaned up, however you want to put it.
I mean, it's only on a very rarely you get somebody who's going to be sick, but to ask someone to pay £100 on the spot, it's very difficult for people to pay that, to get that money. If they don't get it, are they going to go through small claims courts and things like that? So £100 is, they've displayed it, people know, so people are extra careful. They should be careful, and they're professional drivers, so normally you can tell if somebody's worse for wear, then they can keep an eye on them. But normally, from speaking to drivers, people are normally sick, it goes on the mat, etc. So they get rid of the mat sometimes. But in the current climate, it should be a proper valet within the guidance. But £100 I think is fair at the present time.
From the Chair, I noticed in the responses to the proposed fares that were sent out to the trade, there's a response that appears to be from Rhoda members asking if councillors at committee could consider lowering the waiting time. It's proposed to be 20 pence on tariff 1 for every 40 seconds, and the email asks for 20 pence for every 30 seconds. Have there been discussions about this, and can officers update us?
If we were to lower it any more, they're going to push themselves out of the market with the waiting time. It's fair at the moment where the rates are set. It's an increase. It's quite a substantial increase if you look at it for the 2 mile split. But it takes into consideration fuel costs, etc. So at the present time, I think we should run with what's been proposed. look at the feedback that comes back after the consultation in the press, and then we'll review them again in the future. It's quite a big increase for somebody who uses a taxi, and it brings us in line. It ranks us at 35, is it? So that's quite high up in the chart, and obviously that will level out when other people increase, and then it'll move again. So we'll monitor it, and if we think there's a need to readjust, we'll go out and consult again.
And do the yardage and waiting times now stay sort of within the national average?
Yes, yeah, they do.
Councillor Garcia?
I was just wondering when this was likely to be reviewed again. Is it a set period every 3 years or something like that? No.
Councillor Garcia, we can look at it if the trade comes to us and there's been a substantial increase in fuel, etc., or there have been changes, but we look at taxi fees every year, so we will look at this, see if it does need a review. If it does need a review, we will review it. This will be the first time we've done it in a few years. So come along March time next year, we'll be looking at it again. If it needs to be reviewed, we will carry out a review and consult with the trade. If it doesn't, then we won't. But we will keep it, same as with the policies, we'll keep this, it'll be part of the, together with the fees, they'll go hand in hand.
Councillor Behan?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks for the officers for preparing the report. Just an explanation, please, on Appendix F, which are the proposed price increases, of which there are 3 showing, the £3.50, the £5.10 and the £6.80. The last 2 represent about a 6.3% increase on the existing prices, whereas the first one is 9.4%. I just wondered what the thinking was to the difference between those 2 percentage increases, especially on item 1, which is tariff 1.
Councillor Bean, tariff 3 is for Christmas Eve and festive season. It already starts at a higher rate at the beginning. So when you get a journey that goes into from the town to Dunchurch or somewhere,
Yeah,
it'll be extremely expensive.
so tariff 1, which has gone up, I think it was £3.20 up to about £3.50, which doesn't sound much, though it's technically about 9.4%.
Tariff 1 was already low. If you increase the others by 9%, it'll push the end of the journey.
Yes, so it was right to have a difference in
Yeah.
the percentages. Okay, thank you, Mr. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other members that wish to ask questions? Okay. Well, the options that we have before us are to approve the proposed tariff or make modifications or approve an alternative tariff or make no change to the current tariff. If there's no further comments from members, I suggest we take a vote on A, to approve the proposed tariff for consultation.
Through you, Chair, just to amend that line in tariff 3 to bring it into line with tariff 1 and 2, the waiting time. So it's to approve with that small modification, if that's okay.
Okay, so if I could have a proposer and a seconder to approve the proposed tariff for consultation with the slight amendment.
I'll be happy to propose that, Chair.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? A show of hands. Thank you. Moving on to Agenda 5, the statutory review of the gambling policy, statement of principles. That one's with you as well, Emma. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Section 349 of the Gambling Act 2005 requires the Council to review its statement of principles of the gambling policy every 3 years. The current policy is in effect until the 31st of January 2022. A copy of the proposed statement of principles can be seen at Appendix A. This policy was approved for consultation by means of decision under delegated powers on the 12th of November 2021 by the Leader of the Council. The consultation period lasted 4 weeks and the comments received can be found at Appendix C. The comments received have been considered and the policy has been amended to reflect these. The Gambling Commission guidance and legislation was reviewed by officers as part of this process. Primary activity was amended to reflect current guidance and point 17.4 referring to the new rules in relation to bingo in licensed premises. This was also amended as the rules are no longer referred to as being new. It was just a change of wording. As noted previously, this is a statutory review and the new statement of principles must be adopted by the 31st of January 2022 for a period of 3 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Do we have anyone wanting to speak? Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma, and obviously understand it's a statutory review, statutory report. Obviously the policy alludes to children and young people. Is there anything the council can do in terms of communications and wider issues to the public in terms of, and the community, in terms of, you know, gambling awareness, gambling safety? There are instances in the community of people getting into trouble and problems as a result of gambling. Not necessarily linked to this policy, I know, but is that something the council can consider in terms of its communications and work in the community? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. We work with the Gambling Commission and they send out various posters, etc. At the current, due to COVID, etc., they haven't been to rugby, but every year somebody comes from the Gambling Commission and we go around the premises. Last time they came, one of my team members went with Councillor Cade around the premises. Regarding your comment, making the public more aware, we can certainly speak to Gambling Commission to see if there's any literature they can send us, and then we can get that put either on our website or on the council's website or on the licensing page.
Thank you. And Chair, just as a follow-up, yeah, I think it's important that there's also the support to the community as well as a result of gambling and any problems that might result. I think, you know, communication across social media as well as in those premises is important. So we have safe gambling, but also where people have got into trouble, there's communication support to help them and their families. Thank you.
Just to add to that further, we will, once we get any literature from them, contact County to send it round to the education establishments as well, so people can see them there as well. And we could do, for example, when we do renewals, etc., we can send out the appropriate literature there as well. But we'll speak to the Gambling Commission because we've got someone new who covers this area. The last person we used to work with moved on. So we'll liaise with them and we'll get some information, and what we'll do, we'll update you when we update the councillors with what work's been going on later on in the year.
Well, this policy needs to be adopted to be shown on our website. as we've read in the report, it is across Warwickshire. All the councils have worked together to produce this. Can I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Garcia. And a seconder? Councillor Roodhouse.